You can't just be a liar and think, yeah, but metaphysics don't exist, so as long as nobody knows, I'm going to get away with it. You will not get away with it. And so finally, in dire straits, because I'm pretty sure the States is a mess in a lot of ways, you've got a guy coming up here that's like, Hail Mary, let's get ourselves right.
Yeah.
And he's onto something.
Welcome, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers. We are doing a reaction video on the latest Robert F. Kennedy Jr. speech he did this week called Peace and Diplomacy. This was an awesome speech. And I know we're a spiritual channel, and I'll just keep reiterating this, is that, you know, just because you're spiritual doesn't mean you stick your head in the sand on current issues in our world.
Politics are spiritual.
Yes. It's part of your life. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been kicking up a storm. He's made his announcement that he's going to run for the presidency in the United States. And so far, what I'm hearing from this guy, I'm liking what he's got to say, man.
I don't know anything about. I know you sent me some stuff to watch. I didn't, but I will say this. You know, whoever the good candidate is, out of everybody that could have put, I don't know. I'm not saying who it is. I'm not saying it's one person or another person.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it's important that if you're the good one, that you do speak up, even if you get shot down, because, you know, there's got to be an accountability. Like you can't ever say like we did our best, or you know, I don't think it's good, but the lessons are harder to see of life if nobody ever steps forward and says what needs to be said, or stands up for what's right, or does the right thing.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's not putting pressure on anybody like, oh, I better go start an argument at the next family get together. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if there's a good man out there or somebody that's good out there, it's important that they do step up, even if it doesn't work out. Because when the dust settles, it'll help everybody see clearly. One of the things that's most confusing is people actually holding back from saying because they're too terrified what is right. That's just a little side opinion. I don't know.
The thing that kind of caught me on this that really stuck out was him talking about spiritual principles, and in this little segment here from his speech, we're not going to watch the whole thing.
Yeah,
we're just gonna unpack kind of what he talks about, because he makes some really good points. Now, I know there are some people watching this. If you were really hardcore jibber jabber, you're probably not going to like this guy. He did a thing on Joe Rogan where it's like the only platform in the world you can get away with saying some of the stuff that he was talking about. So I implore people to go check out that interview he did on Joe Rogan. It was fantastic.
If you're not hardcore jibber jabber, you mean you wouldn't like the full version of this?
No, you might not like him as a you might be reluctant to support him, because if you took such a hard stance on something, thinking that it was a way,
you got to be open-minded.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of it. And I'm sure others out there, you know what I mean. But anyway, let's get into this reaction. Unpack it.
Let's leave off geopolitics for a moment and take the matter of war and peace a little deeper. President Kennedy understood that peace begins with our basic attitudes and beliefs. He spoke of the futility of passively waiting for the other side to become enlightened. We, quote, we must examine our own attitudes, he said, as individuals and as a nation, for our attitude is as essential to theirs. End quote. We should, he said, begin by looking inward. Yes, back in 1963, a politician really said that. A political leader.
Because you don't get that nowadays. You don't tell people like, you know, presidents saying we need to like look within ourselves instead of constantly pointing the finger at someone else for,
you know, the cynical voice within says like, well, no wonder he was shot.
Yeah,
it's too true, man. Some things, if they're too true, or what could be regarded as too crazy for people, they're like, you got to go. Yeah. You know, sometimes those things are the same thing. Sometimes what appears crazy to like the system and the way of things sometimes that's also the true thing.
Yeah.
And people are like, whoa.
Well, here's another thing. Maybe the world wasn't ready for that message back then. And then I ask myself, are we ready for it now? Are we going to be able to answer the call, 60 years later after that happened?
Yeah, just think about what he said. You can't wait for the other side to become enlightened. And I don't think he's talking about straight up enlightenment.
Yeah, no.
You can't wait for the other side to know themselves and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, I think that it's becoming more and more clear, and I think it's going to get painfully clear if we don't listen, that we got to get our hearts right.
Yep.
A political leader voiced what would be considered today a spiritual maximum or a spiritual principle. Let's take up that call from 60 years ago and ask Americans, all of us, to re-examine our attitude. We have been immersed in a foreign policy discourse that is all about adversaries and threats and allies and enemies and domination. We've become addicted to comic book good versus evil narratives that erase complexity and blind us to the legitimate motives and the legitimate cultural and economic concerns and the legitimate security concerns of other peoples and other nations. We have internalized and institutionalized a reflex of violence as the response for any and all crises. Everything becomes a war. The war on drugs, the war on terror, the war on cancer, the war on climate change. This way of thinking predisposes us to wage endless wars abroad, wars and coups and bombs.
Incredible, eh?
Oh, wow.
It's incredible.
Let me just try to evacuate the war out of myself right now. I don't need to say anything. That's just,
Yeah.
that's such an important thing to do. We're like keeping this war in our minds.
Yeah.
And drones and regime change operations and support for paramilitaries and juntas and dictators. None of this has made us safer, and none of it has burnished our leadership or our moral authority. More importantly, we must ask ourselves, is this really who we are? Is this what we want to be? Is that what Americans' founders envisioned? Here's another spiritual principle, one that my uncles also referred to, when he said, quote, "We are both caught up in a vicious and dangerous cycle, with suspicion on one side breeding suspicion on the other, and new weapons begetting counterweapons. When we hold others in the belief that they are implacable enemies, they tend to mold themselves accordingly to our view of them. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy or prediction that launches all players into a cycle of suspicion that my uncle warned against. Inhabiting the role of an enemy, we empower hardliners in places like Russia, China, Cuba, and Iran. We invite them into the drama of conflict, the drama of provocation and counter-provocation, of weapon and counter-weapon. Is it any wonder that as America has waged violence throughout the world, violence has overtaken us in our own nation? It has not come as an invasion. It has come from within. Our bombs, our drones, our armies are incapable of stopping the gun violence on our streets and schools or domestic violence in our homes. I see the same link here as my father and Martin Luther King saw.
It's crazy.
I can't believe I'm looking at a candidate for the states with American flags behind him saying these things.
Yeah.
What is going on?
I think it's so refreshing to hear someone talk like this because you're not getting it from Biden or Trump.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Like, I feel like finally there's someone you can root for in this in this thing. But so like, and I know there's no like saviors coming, and it's a more complex issue and everything.
Yeah.
I just like what he's saying.
Yeah.
And recognizing, like, look at the damage, like, you're causing, and you were reaping the karma of that on your own soil, and there ain't nothing you can do. No army's gonna come save you until you look within.
It is, people really don't want things to be about that. They want it to be about something a little more literal. Like, no, it's from, who are the people that made all the opioids?
Oh yeah, like pharmaceutical companies. Like I forget I can't remember their name. God damn it.
People want it to be about something, like some just tangible material thing. And no, you're crazy. It's just about these things. I think we got to go deeper. And it almost to me is like we're only getting a guy like this talking this way because of how bad things are. Like it's finally somebody's got to kind of be like, why not? What else are we going to do? You know what I mean? Let him talk about spiritual stuff. Now, like keep in mind, like his uncle, John F. Kennedy, and his brother were both shot.
No, his dad and John F. Kennedy were shot.
They were both shot. And look at the types of things they were saying. You know,
Yeah.
Have you ever heard somebody from that generation talk about them? Like, you know, like what it was like when they
wasn't it Kennedy's speech where he said, "Don't ask what the country can do for you. Ask what you can do for it."
Yeah.
In a day when everyone's looking for handouts and I'm a victim, so give me something, give me some money.
Yeah. Yeah. And I understand the desire to come in here and correct too naive, you know, like you got to fucking like coming in with that frustrated, manly attitude. But what he's saying is correct. It is correct about getting the heart right and all that stuff. And we are destined to make the same mistakes over and over again if we can't get understand that spirituality is a real thing and understand that there is a metaphysical aspect to this whole thing. We're destined to make this. You know, I know people that cheat. They cheat on their spouse, and then their spouse leaves them for some other reason, and they're like, I'm like, have you ever thought that maybe it's because they're cheating on you? And they're like, they don't know that I cheat. They don't know that. So what? That's not why. I'm like, it is why. That's why though. You know, and it maybe things would be different if there was an added element of honesty. Like, hey, I can't stop cheating for the love of, so help me God, I can't stop cheating. I've actually seen people work it out where somebody who can't stop does that. What I'm saying is, you can't just be a liar and think, yeah, but metaphysics don't exist, so as long as nobody knows, I'm going to get away with it. You will not get away with it. And so finally, in dire straits, because I'm pretty sure the States is a mess in a lot of ways, you've got a guy coming up here that's like, Hail Mary, let's get ourselves right.
Yeah.
And he's onto something.
Yeah.
About the Vietnam War. They saw that war. They believed that we could not have warfare abroad without bringing that violence home to our streets, to our attitudes, to our communities. Foreign violence is inseparable from domestic violence. Both are aspects of a basic orientation and a basic set of priorities. Waging endless wars. Waging endless wars abroad, we have neglected the foundation of our own well-being. We have a decaying economic infrastructure. We have a demoralized people and despairing people. We have toxins in our air and our soil and our water. We have deteriorating mental and physical health. These are the wages of war. What will be the wages of peace? They will be healing of all the symptoms of America's decline. None of these are beyond our capacity to heal. We can restore America to the awesome vitality of the original Kennedy era. My uncle said it well. He said that no problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. He warned us that, quote, too many of us think that peace is impossible. Too many of us think it is unreal. But that is the dangerous and defeatist belief. It leads to the conclusion that war is inevitable, that mankind is doomed, that we are gripped by forces that we cannot control. We need not accept that view. Our problems are man-made, and therefore they can be solved by man.
On that last point of like manifesting your own reality, that's kind of what he's talking about, man.
You ever said something like some kind of like ideal, and then the person across from you is like, you first. I've had that before,
Yeah.
where I'm talking about ideals and like maybe what would be good to do. And oftentimes I think the thing is people go, well, you first. I'll stop lying when you stop lying. I'll do, somebody's got to go first.
Yeah.
And like it, we all understand defense mechanisms. We all understand survival, but I think we're being kind of called to go a little deeper here and a return to like a sense of, true morality.
Yeah. Again, on that point, like near the end there, I think what you're saying is a valid, useful, good point. We do need to do that. Continue to be honest, or, learn to be honest.
Be more conscious, at least. If you're going to not be honest, do it with consciousness. Be like, here's me lying.
Yeah.
Here's me. Try to get real conscious. And again, like, it's weird because it's so easy to project outwards. And even what we're doing is like, try thinking with your heart, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. On that last point that where he was talking about, like, always worrying about the end, always worrying about I love how he pointed out, he was saying, like, that is the thing. He was like, if you don't believe that you can make it better, and there's so much resistance on that. Whenever I talk to people about positive mindset, hoping for the best, like, I want a golden age of utopia, and your natural reaction is like, that'll never happen. Well, of course, that will never happen if the collective believes that it'll never happen. So I like where he's steering that. We need to, like, change our minds. We need to, like, because they're broken to, like, think negatively all the time.
I wish there was just more safe spaces in the world, though, man. Like, sometimes it's hard to even entertain these things. I know people that pretty much live in a jungle, and they, like a concrete jungle where it's so tough to even get in touch with, like, your heart and some peaceful way of being. And it's all about survival, man. And it's all about encountering other people that are hurt. All these things that people do that are negative projections and judgmental and all these things, they all come from, like, hurting people. Like, you're hurting, bruh.
Yeah.
You are hurting and you're carrying it around. And I'm just thinking, like, how do you even create some kind of, like, safe space where people actually feel like it's safe to start dropping the pretenses and dropping the...
It's also even hard with, like,
it's
also hard even now with censorship. Now, one of the fascinating things about what he's doing for his campaign is that he's decided to go full, like online, like through using social media. He's like podcast hopping, like, all day, every day until this, and so he's bypassing mainstream media because they won't give him an outlet, I don't think. Because of some of the things that he's said in the past. But I think there's a lot of misconceptions about this guy. There was a lot of things said about him that weren't true. He wrote the book, The Real Dr. Fauci. Like, he wrote that book. So, which I want to get around to reading. But interesting character. I like what this guy's saying.
I want to reiterate that point that you said about self-fulfilling prophecy type thing. It'll never work. A very successful person I know, like, I'm pretty sure at this point has his own construction company. I remember we worked together way back in the day when we were, like, peers, and he was like, we should start our own construction company or something like that. And I was like, it wouldn't work because of this. And he was like, well, not with that attitude.
Yeah.
And I was like, everything about this guy is already far more successful than me. And then he went on to be even more and more and more. Because it's right. Not with that attitude. If if you're constantly shooting things down and trying to rationalize everything into inaction, then not with that attitude, you ain't going to get squat.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, there's a mature way to do things. There's an immature way to do things. There's an impulsive way to do things. There's a well thought out and better way to do things.
Yeah.
But it would be nice if this guy inspired some people to be better.
Yeah. I think his target is for I don't think he's... People who are radically set to one side or the other, whether it's right or left, they're not going to have any interest in this guy. But for the rest of the pack, I think he's honing in on the center base of things, which is good because it's been a long time since there's been any of that. let us know, guys, in the comments what you think about this guy. Are we out to lunch? Is there stuff that we're missing? Maybe you
Are
agree
we spot
with
on?
us.
Are we exactly correct?
Yeah. Let us know if we're doing something good. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and everybody, until next time, stay spiritual.